So to summarize this section, we talked about Ethernet cables and their limitations to the length. We talked about the various types of devices we might be using, such as hub or switches, and why there's a difference between, what the differences are between switches and bridges today. We talked about the use for bridges and switches in a network and how they divide a local area network into multiple segments into separate collision domains, which provide much better performance to the overall network as a whole. We talked about the different number of ways in which we're going to benefit from putting switched Ethernet into our network. I talked a little bit about the different hierarchies we could build, as well as showed you the reasons why we'd use spanning tree in a network that was filled with switches. We spent a good amount of time introducing the Cisco iOS command line interface that you're going to use to configure all of your Cisco devices from here on out. Now, it's not the only way we can use the only method we can use to configure Cisco iOS, but it's generally the preferred method. There are some web interfaces you can play with. There's the Cisco SDM, which is new for the routers. There's actually a web interface for the Catalyst switches, which I generally don't use. But these interfaces usually end up, after you've typed things in or clicked on things to do stuff, it ends up pushing the same CLI commands down to the device that we just did. So knowing the CLI is really the key to troubleshooting and making sure this stuff is operating as you intend it to. We saw the startup process of a Catalyst switch and went through the process of pushing the buttons on the front to see our link lights or utilization status of the switch. We took a look at the CLI and used it to configure the names and passwords for various access methods to get into the device, as well as look at some security features for the switch specifically, like port security and disabling ports that were unused. In the next section, we're going to have a short discussion talking about wireless networks and how you might consider deploying them in your environment.